Okay guys, we are going to talk about the Schlieffen Plan today, and you're going to need the Schlieffen Plan doodle notes. You're also going to need a red and blue marker or colored pencil, and then just a regular pencil or maybe a neutral colored marker if you want. You are welcome to use more colors if you want, but you definitely need to make sure that you have a red and a blue. We are going to make the red represent the Central Powers and the blue the Allied powers, and our notes for this unit. Okay, this plan was created by a German general known as Alfred von Schlieffen. It's a 6-week plan from start to finish, and it's meant to be used when there is a two-front war or a two-front attack. So I want to explain to you what I mean by a two-front war. But first, I want you to make sure that you're drawing these things that I have here. So this lets us know to the west is France, to the east is Russia, and Germany is in between. And I'm going to show you on the map what this looks like. All right, so I just want to explain what a two-front war or a two-front attack is by showing you this map. This map is from 1914. This is what the territories would have looked like at this time. Our map today looks a little bit different, but this is France, and Paris would have been right around here. Then we have Belgium, Germany, which also would have been called Prussia. This would be East Prussia, but this is German territory, and then Russia. So what I mean by a two-front attack is when you have enemies that are on either side of you geographically. So one enemy, France, is to the west, and then the other enemy, Russia, is to the east. All right, so now I'm going to go through the plan step by step. First, the Germans were going to send forces west through Belgium, which at this time, Belgium was a neutral country. They weren't on either side of this conflict. They were just neutral. So the Germans were going to send their forces west through Belgium, because you remember from the map that Belgium is in between Germany and Paris, France. So they would, in order to get there, they would need to go through Belgium. So that's step one. Step number two is that once they got to Paris, they would quickly surround the city. And then this would force France to surrender. Last, the German forces would quickly run back to meet the Russians on the Eastern Front to battle them. So I want to show you on the map, we just talked about the plan, what it was supposed to look like. So this was what they had intended to happen. Germany was going to go through Belgium, and Belgium was going to let them right on through. And then they would attack Paris, France, surround them, and they would be forced to surrender. Then the German forces would quickly go back to the Eastern Front over here, where they would meet with the Russians and then fight them. Now here is what actually happened. So to the west, I just put west here with a little sad face because things did not go well in the west for the Germans. First, the Belgians refused the Germans' right of passage. They wouldn't let them come through. And so because of this, the Germans end up breaking the treaty that they had with the Belgians, and they forced their way in. Now, the next thing that happens is very significant, because this is when Britain joins the Allies. Britain comes into the war. So I kind of put some yellow around it just to show that this is an important event. Up until this point, Britain had not been involved, but now they're involved. And the reason why they're involved is because they had a treaty, an agreement from 1839 with the Belgians that said that they would protect them in event of a war. So now they're making good on their promise, and they're joining the Allies to battle it out with the Germans. The French end up stopping the German advance outside of Paris. Remember, the plan was that they were going to quickly surround it and cause them to have to surrender, but instead they end up stopping them. And then the Russians on the Eastern Front, they end up mobilizing a lot quicker than the Germans had expected. So they were already there waiting for the German troops when they came back east, and they ended up being a lot. Okay, so this brings us to the east. And I'll put a smiley face there because there was some success by the German troops. They ended up defeating the Russians. So you remember the Russians were already there ready to fight, but the Germans did well. Despite that, they ended up seizing more than 200,000 prisoners, Russian prisoners, and they pretty much demoralized the Russians, and the Russian troops had to return to their homeland. All right, so here's what actually happened. Germany goes up to Belgium, and they say, let us through. Belgium says, nope. And instead of Germany accepting this, they end up attacking Belgium and breaking their treaty with them. Then they go into France, and Paris, like I said, is around here. They are not successful in France. The French end up stopping the German advance outside of Paris. And then the German troops, they go back to this eastern front. The Russians are already there. So the Russians mobilized a lot quicker than Germany expected them to. In fact, you know, this plan, I told you it was going to be 6 weeks. It ended up being 10 days. So Russia was already ready to fight them, but Germany was still strong. And Germany ended up defeating the Russians, seized, you know, a bunch of prisoners, and they were successful to some degree on the east. So not successful on the west, somewhat successful on the east, and this ended in a stalemate, meaning that neither side was victorious. There was no clear winner. So for the important question to be answered, does the plan work? No, it did not work. Although the German troops had some success in defeating the Russians on the Eastern Front, there were other losses on the West that made them overall not victorious in this conflict. It ended in a stalemate, meaning that neither side made enough significant gains to be declared the winner. But perhaps the most significant thing that came out of this period of time and these events is the fact that Britain joined the Allies. This was a major turning point in World War I. All right, guys, so don't forget to bring in this completed sheet with you for our battle scene. We're going to recreate this entire plan, what was supposed to happen and what actually happened. We're going to use toy soldiers and tanks and weapons, and we're going to record a couple of videos.